Good evening. Welcome to the Public Service Committee meeting on today's Tuesday, November the 18th. Time is 4:02 p.m. First item on the agenda is the approval of minutes from our October the 14th meeting.
So moved.
Make a motion to... Oh, I'm sorry.
I said so moved.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I didn't hear. Okay. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, same sign. All right. The minutes for October the 14th meeting are approved. Any public participation? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to project updates. Mr. Davis, or you want to start with that? Okay.
I'll go ahead and start here just to give you some highlights. We have been talking in other meetings about getting some sort of a simple summary of these projects. I don't have those ready this meeting, but we'll be getting pretty shortly to kind of give you a little better picture of each project we have and where it stands kind of year by year and funding. So that's coming. I don't have those ready yet.
More like we talk like a report on each one to follow. Okay.
Yes. So,
progress. Okay.
So lacking that, I do apologize. Those aren't ready yet. Just a couple to mention real fast. We have I've mentioned these before. We have a bulk water fill project. It's in construction now. This a new device to fill water trucks that's down on the airport next to the wastewater treatment plant. That's in construction, and that's still scheduled to be done in the spring. So that's ongoing now. We have a couple minor, well, that's just a couple design projects. One of them is continuing to go on a water line on Good that's planned for construction next year. That's west of High Street, and then a future project for High Street that's going to be a later year. And we also have a project on Donna that has had some leakage that's also being designed now. So lots of projects that are getting ready for next year's construction cycle. So this is kind of that design time. And then the last one I'll mention is there's a water tower that's proposed. We did send out a request for qualifications. We've received 5 different firms, and so we're still analyzing those and going to be coming with a recommendation with one of those firms here in probably a couple weeks. So that's just a basic summary of what we have for the highlighted water projects.
Okay. I get a question or comment on the water. Earlier this year, they did a lot of, for lack of better words, mapping of the water boxes where they're located in the Wintergreen neighborhood, and they dug out to get down to where that particular box is. A lot of times they've left a hole that is like 6, 8, 10 inches deep that you can actually step in. Are they going to come around and fill those in, or are they going to raise that box up to the level of the turf?
I'll have to find out who was doing that. There were a couple.
It looked like our students were doing it.
Yeah, there are a couple different groups doing it, so I'll have to work with, I'm guessing Derek is probably the lead on that, our superintendent for water. I'll check on that.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Sure.
Okay, anything else? All right, the water, wastewater, we'll do wastewater, anything on that? That's all done too, or you got?
I don't have much else to, really nothing new to report. Okay. So lots of projects in the process. As our SSO is the main factor. I will just say one brief thing that the McEntee area has been an issue that's come up. We're continuing to work with a consultant to start looking at flow monitoring, but that's still in progress. So we're aware of the concerns that the neighbors have there, and we're doing our best to make a program that makes sense. So that's one quick update on that.
All right. And then next on the under the updates is the fiber project.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the fiber project, we continue to make progress there in both the aerial placement and the underground areas. We've got about 3,500 homes now that are ready for service, meaning that they're ready to receive the final installation from our folks. By the time we get to the end of this calendar year, so December 31st, we anticipate that we'll have more than 5,000 homes ready for service. Now, the reason you see that big jump is because a lot of the aerial fiber, it has been placed, it's complete. The last phases of that are splicing and testing. So there's some splicing and testing that they're getting caught up on, but they can basically sign off on a big swath of work that's already been completed when they do those final 2 steps. We've got just under 1,400 folks now installed on fiber internet, so the actual number is 1,395. We've got 725 TV subscribers that are now on streaming television instead of cable. And then we've also got an additional 500 drop fiber connections laid. So that's basically the first part of the kind of a two-part installation. So a normal installation, if you have to run the drop and do the work at the house, takes about 2 hours. When we have availability, our guys are laying the drop down, so the actual customer installation time only takes an hour then for the stuff that they do out at the house and inside the house. So that work's done. Recent work that's been completed was placement of the pedestals, the laterals, and backbone fiber within the Great Oaks Trail area. Splicing and testing taking place, or wrapped up in backyard easements between Akron and Broad and Lyman to Crestwood. Work planned over the next couple of weeks, underground work or laterals in the underground areas on Briarthorn, Summit, Leeds Gate, Bent Creek, and expect to wrap up the splicing component on Laverne, Park Center, and Smoke Rise. And then there'll be continued splicing and testing in Seville, Main Street, and the South Corridor areas. Installations planned for the next 2 weeks. Installations are now open in Blooming Acres, all of Tiburon Trace, and all of the blue areas on the locations map on our website. So that continues to be updated regularly, so anybody can go in, put in an address, and see if fiber is available now in their area, or the general estimate of where they're at and when it's going to be available. But that's basically the highlights, I guess.
Just the numbers again. How many homes have fiber potential right now in the city?
So about 3,500.
3,500. Out of the 3,500, how many are actually hooked up?
1,395.
And out of the 1,395, how many have added streaming?
Well, we have 725 streaming customers.
So the 725 are out of the 1,395?
It could be. Most of them are going to be out of there, but folks could sign up for streaming television service even if they didn't have fiber in their area
Oh,
yet.
okay. Yeah, they just need the internet. Okay. Do you know the difference? Do you know out of that 725?
Like how many just added stream? I can find out. I don't know,
Yeah.
but I can find out.
So you're telling me, like me, I've got cable. I could do, and I've got internet. I could do streaming.
You
right?
could. You could.
Okay. Thanks.
Other questions? And could you give us, I know it's not on the agenda under project, can you give us an update on the meter replacement,
Yep.
the boxes?
Yeah. So the water meter improvement project, this is really where we're replacing the endpoints that send the reads into the system. We've now completed about 6,400 of the endpoint installations. And if you remember, this is where we had a little bit of a problem back in October, because one of the crews that had been doing the installations had mixed up some numbers, in essence saying, this particular endpoint went to this house when it went to a different house. And that's why we ended up sending the billing out late, because we had a lot of reads that were unusually high, so we held up till we get that straightened around. They've addressed that. It's been verified now. They've corrected it, and they've taken whatever measures they were planning to take with that particular crew leader. But all in all, I would say these guys are zooming, because they really just started this year. We thought it could be up to 18 months, and I see them finishing probably within a year, so probably by next summer at the latest.
And that's 6,400 out of what's the total being replaced,
Yeah, I think we've got about, I want to say like 11,000
Okay.
endpoints that need to be done. And again, these are things that take place outside of the house, so the homeowner doesn't need to schedule anything or doesn't need to be inconvenienced by letting someone in.
For the record, I just want to make a comment or request. When they put the original ones in some time ago, they took the water meter off, put the newer one on, left holes in the exterior of my home. then now they do the same thing, and there's holes in the exterior of my home because they don't have like a faceplate or something that would cover it. So now I have more holes. I
From
think
the
they could
endpoint-
do something, there's difference in the size of the meters. Is there something they can do to correct that?
Yeah, so are you talking about the water meter itself?
The one on the outside of the home,
One
the
at-
electronic
that's
one,
the
yes.
point. Yeah, let me explore that and see.
Yeah. I
Mine's
mean,
the
nothing
same
against the installer. He did exactly what he was told. But, I don't know how many homes we're going to do altogether, but it's an unsightly thing.
All right. Anything
I
else?
want to go back, one other question, I apologize. It's the numbers on it. So when you have when you have the fiber to 3,500 homes and 1,395 have connected, the other 60%, they're just running cable still, right?
That's right. Yeah,
So they
the
just
folks
have
that,
it-
yeah.
So when you put the fiber to the house, it's just out to the street, they still have the cable running to the house, and there's nothing, there's no reason for them to change at this point, because they can just stay with cable.
Well, they could, but we're going to end the cable service. If you're in an area that has underground laterals, typically the cable line is being pulled out of the pipe underground when the new fiber line is being run.
Well, that's what I thought, that's why I was wondering,
Yeah.
how do they still keep cable? We're not-
Yeah, so when we're doing the installations, we're putting them on the fiber and moving them to the streaming TV if they're an existing cable TV subscriber.
Just for the record, too, when they're doing that, and it was brought to my attention when somebody installed the fiber, not the fiber, but the streaming in my home, that outside at the curb where they are going to, attach the fiber to the utility
Pedestal.
boxes or whatever, that I was told there's a 15-foot right-of-way around there, and that anything planted, whether it be ornamental shrubs or flowers or whatever, the homeowner could have those damaged. No fault of their own or the installer, but is it true there's a 15-foot right-of-way around there?
I can speak to that. The normal, if I'm understanding correctly, the normal road configuration is a roughly 30 feet or less from curb to curb, and normally a 60-foot right-of-way that is city property, basically. And so that 15 feet behind the curb is normally, and often there's a sidewalk in there.
Yeah.
That is city property that
Yeah.
that owners have some responsibility for maintaining, but that is public land.
It's just, going forward, if we're going to be doing all these installs to that, I mean, people are going to probably be curious why we've done damage to their, vegetation, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, Dave, if you have an address, send it to me, because our guys try and are supposed to be putting it back to the way
Okay.
it was before.
All right.
There-
And
there's-
again, I didn't get this from, I got it from one of the installers when they came out to do
One of
my-
our installers,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Not the fiber, but the streaming.
Streaming TV, okay.
All right. We'll move on to the next item on here. We've got a couple of rate increases here. The first one is the electric rate increase.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So there are actually a total of 3 pieces of legislation that we'll be bringing. The final legislation is not ready yet, just because there's a lot of pieces, parts to update. But the first one that we're talking about is the rate increase from the electric rate study. So the electric rate study was completed earlier this year, and they actually proposed 2 different rate tracks at our request. One of them would basically increase rates 3.5% for each of 4 years. The other track would increase rates 5%, 5%, and then down to 3%, 3% for the following 2 years. So the rate study in general is really, it's more formally known as a cost of service study, and it's designed to basically look at what all of our costs are, what the expected costs are, and what debt covenants we have and other requirements with that, and ultimately propose rates that allow us to maintain enough, so to speak, for the rainy day fund, allow us to achieve the cash balances necessary to meet debt covenants, and it really are designed, not to increase to the point where we have a giant cash balance where it looks like, hey, we're charging a lot more than we need to run the system. So I'll talk about the 5% rate increase, and the reason that tract is what I'm proposing is because that's the 5% increase is what is included in the budget proposal. So the electric department's budget proposal, when you look at the projected fund balances at the end of 2025 and 2026, well, not 2025, but 2026, the ending fund balance assumes that we increased electric rates by 5% going into effect at the beginning of 2026.
And there was one question too that Mr. Copley couldn't be here tonight, and I forwarded it to you, but I can go ahead and read his question. That we did have some previous discussions that the electric reserve funds were used and have been used to fund the fiber to the home project, and it was asked if this increase is necessary with the current amount of reserves that are in the electric fund.
Yeah, so the electric department's contribution to the telecom or the fiber project was based on the electric department's need to basically have a fiber ring that was connecting the substations and their reclosers and their SCADA system and all of those components. So imagine that the fiber project never occurred. The electric department would have still needed to go out and hire somebody to basically run that fiber. So that's part of the electric department's regular cost of operations and upgrades that they're making. That is, that's one of the things that was considered in doing the rate increases, but typically the rate studies are really, looking at what are the ongoing operating and maintenance expenses, and then, kind of a level of capital spending necessary to maintain the system. So in this particular case, this was the portion that electric is paying to the fiber project is because they would have to pay that money to somebody for the improvements that they need on the fiber-related improvements to the electric infrastructure.
Okay. Any questions?
I have a question that's going to relate to all three. It's going to relate to electric, water, and sewer. So I noticed in the book, there's a balance of $6,026,000 in electric fund. There's a balance of $4,477,000 in water, and there's a balance of $2,978,000 in sewer. Do we have a reserve policy on those? If
we do.
Okay, what is the reserve policy, and is it approved by council? Has it been approved by council?
Well, that's a good question because the auditor's office just developed we had electric, but the water and sewer were really just in the last year or so, and I don't know if those were formally adopted by council.
Yeah, because you're using, we'll use the electric for example. What's the right number to have in a reserve account? Somebody came up with a reserve number, right?
Yeah.
And then, and really that should get approved by city council.
Yeah, so the electric cash reserve, that's been in existence at least since I've been here, but whether or not it was ever approved by city council, that I don't know. I'd have to.
Remember, what I'm asking is what is the reserve? Yeah, city council should approve. What is the reserve that is authorized that we should be maintaining in that fund? Because otherwise, you wouldn't need a rate increase if, and I'm not saying you don't need a rate increase, I'm just looking at it from the standpoint of once you develop what the fund should have in it, that's, you might not need a rate increase until the amount gets down to that. So I guess you're telling me that $6 million is the number, because that's.
So for electric, the recommended financial targets in the rate study were cash reserves of basically $9.8 million.
So you're below the reserve.
We are.
Where you at with, how about water?
looks like our proposed reserve for minimum reserve for 2026 would be about $4 million. And then by the time we get to, it's increasing to the projected balance at 2030 of a minimum fund balance of just over $8 million.
And then sewer. And I guess it would be interesting, not now, is to determine if that's ever been approved. I mean, probably should have been approved by council at some point in time.
Sanitary sewer, for 2026, the minimum cash balance to meet the reserve policy would be basically $4 million.
So you're way under on all the cash reserve. But the question is, where's that, who's setting that number and why is it at the level it is? Because the reserve should be a balance that allows you. Tell me what should the reserve be? Because you got ongoing revenues coming in to cover the costs. The reserve should be for what purpose and why so high?
Well, in general, for any of the enterprise funds, the reserve balance is set to basically cover, short-term operating needs, any contingency, and to make sure that we meet any debt coverage ratios, basically. Now, in particular with the sanitary sewer in the water, again, those are new just in the last year that the auditor's office put together. The electric rate one, that's one that's been here for a while, and we typically review that and update that every year along with the general fund cash reserve policy.
So I would think you should be able to come to the city council would say, this is what you just said, the three things that are needed, and based on debt service coverage and all these things, it's determined that we need X amount in reserve for these accounts, and should probably get an approval from council. How do you plan on, how do you plan on getting up to 9 million on electric? You're at 6 now.
Yeah, so again, this is 4 years of, 4-year tracks for rate increases. So one of them either the 3.5% each year for 4 years, the other one being the 5%, 5%, 3%, 3%. So it's growing the balance to there over time. And part of it is just balancing out, we don't want to throw everything in the kitty now and have such huge increases in utility bills. Right. So
But you're saying your rate increases you're proposing, the goal is to get the reserve accounts to those numbers you read out earlier, over maybe 4 years or so.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, you said the legislation is not ready yet, so you just want to wait for a recommendation to move forward until you do that?
Yeah,
Right.
and I have done, just for context, I've run the numbers, so, it looks like the average customer, the average water bill goes up about $9.12 a month. The electric charge goes up about $6 a month. And then I think the sanitary sewer, it's like $2 and something cents a month. And I will be putting together formal rate schedules like we did for water and sewer. So it's very easy to see, what the rates are now for each of the components, and then what the proposed rate is for each of those components.
And the water rates and the sewer rates, this is the second year, correct, of that? We did the first year of the study last year, and these rates here are from year number 2.
That's right. So last year, the water rate was, the increase was 38%, which went into effect on December 1st of 2024. The sewer rate increase, 8.5%. This second year, the water increases 28%. Sanitary sewer, again, is 8.5%. And then the third year on the water rate would be, I think, 32%.
Yeah.
And again, sanitary sewer would be 8.5%.
The same, okay. All right. Any other questions on that from anybody? All right. we will move on to, unless, hold on here, maybe, do you want to, getting into the budget here, you want to jump to other and take care of those and the WCTV staffing, because we might have somebody here who might want to give some input, and then we can go back to the budget. But let's call an audible here and go ahead and jump to other and talk about, start with the snow and ice program. We'll come back and do the budget last.
Okay, so the item A under the other category is the resolution of necessity, basically for passing along the assessments to downtown business owners, property owners, for the snow removal services. So we have a downtown snow and ice program where we basically hire a contractor to take care of the salting, the plowing, the parking areas, sidewalks, those type of things. And those costs are basically passed on to the property owners down there, who typically then, have arrangements with the businesses or their tenants. But we pass that along at our cost, so there's no markup or anything added to that. Over the last couple of years, we actually had two different programs. We had the downtown program, and then we had a program for the South End businesses. The South End businesses did not meet any minimum, needed to have 60% approval for the assessments. We did not get petitions back totaling that. We did make that amount for the downtown improvement program. So this resolution would be basically the resolution of necessity. And just where we're at kind of in the year, the recommendation would be to move that, just because, we're getting into December.
Any questions on that?
What is the cost?
I think it's $8.90, it would be $8.95 per linear foot. Now,
Total is?
well, that would be the assessment rate. Ultimately, the cost would be, ultimate cost is based on snowfall and how many times we have to have people out. But I think there should be a schedule by property in here that shows what the, based on each person's linear footage, what they would be expected to pay if we had kind of a normal winter with our, normally what we budget for this. Do you have that in your packet, David?
I don't.
It would be an exhibit.
Are they required to pay? I mean, what if they say, I'm not paying it?
Well, I mean, my understanding is that, once 60% of the people have petitioned to do that, they're all in.
I don't see it.
And we explained it, okay. So let me send it to you, because normally that's part of the exhibit's part of that, so I don't know. Hold up here.
Yeah, in fact, the resolutions, the copy of the resolution's not in here.
And who collects that while you're looking? Who collects? What if they say, I'm not paying? Have we had any problems? Is everybody paid, or we?
As far as I know, but I think ultimately if they don't pay, it probably goes on their property taxes. But the bills are not, I mean, the reason people are signing up for this is because, we try to be as inexpensive as possible and get some economies of, buying power by having one vendor kind of handle everybody.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I just know people are people, and that's why I was wondering what,
Yeah, I believe the auditor's office ultimately passes those on to, I believe, property tax bills.
it'd be I mean, again, it's probably not that big of a number, but I'm not even sure. I don't know how you would levy it on the property, but do you know?
It's an assessment process, so that's why you have to go through that approval of 60%, and then if 60% approved, then you can move forward to attach any unpaid charges to a property assessment.
And the 60% includes every building down there? I mean, how do they, where's?
I believe the 60% only pertains to buildings that have frontage that could be part of the program.
Yeah,
So it does not include every property.
Yeah, there's a map and a list of all the properties that engineering prepares of who's in the zone. So all of those people are contacted and petitioned.
Motion to
Mr.
move
Renacci,
that.
to comment, I'm not saying it hasn't happened, but I'm not aware of many instances of failures to pay. We have had some slow pay, but I'm not aware, not saying that they don't exist, but not aware of any. So a reflection of the program seems to be appreciated, and participants involved follow up on their promises.
I think it's a good idea. I just was thinking back, there used to be the downtown merchants had a guy that they all paid, and he just kind of zipped through with the tractor, and so it's the same thing, except now we're running through the city.
That's correct.
All right,
I don't, there's no resolution in here or in your email to us.
Okay. So the law department must still be working on that. So I will, okay.
what do you want to, should we go ahead, I mean, because of what the program is, we can go ahead and move it recommend to move it forward and then get the legislation to have it for the next meeting, for our next council of the whole meeting, to look at the numbers.
Yeah, we could.
Because it has to be implemented here for the...
Yeah, we might have a snow event before then, though.
Yeah,
That's the only
that's the
thing.
only thing, yeah. So,
Is there any way to button this up?
Absent perhaps a special meeting, which I'm not sure that you want to have in regards to that. However, we are getting together for a budget hearing next Monday evening, so we could present one item of legislation for your consideration at that particular meeting, which would, if considered, could get expedited and cover us at that point in time if we have a storm event.
Great thought.
yeah, why don't
Let's
we,
do that.
let's do that.
Okay. We will make sure that you have copies of the proposed resolution as well as the exhibit tomorrow. You'll see those.
Next item on there is the WCTV staffing. Originally, this came up, there was a ordinance for some pay increases, and when we were looking at, and it was brought to our attention that the job descriptions are still from the 1990s. They don't, the rules don't fit the game anymore, and so we thought before doing this, some of those positions ought to be redefined. And I don't know if it's, if we can do this real quick, not to throw Ms. Perino under the bus here, but if maybe you could just briefly kind of talk about the staffing and what the other couple people did. I mean, they're not full-time, they're not part-time, and they're not like summer help.
And everything's in that email that I sent to you, and Tara, and Mike. So, but if you want to.
Yeah, if you could, just so that everybody has kind of an idea here of, and for the record, go ahead and give us your name and all the good things there.
Joanna Perino, retired from WCTV. In the email that I had sent the other day, I was listening to the council meeting from last time, and when Tara was describing those positions of our part-time people, she had mentioned they were seasonal. So as long as I've been here, and to HR, seasonal may mean something different. So I just wanted to give you my input. They've never really been seasonal in that they've only shown up as needed. They've always had a schedule at the studio. So right now, Abe, Jared, Abe does about 15 hours a week. He's part-time. He does sporting events and he records the meetings. Jared Evangelist just comes in to do meetings, so he kind of is as needed. And then Aiden Uzinski, who's up there now recording, he works anywhere from 30 to sometimes 40 hours a week, especially since my departure and not having another person in that position. So he has really taken on a lot of responsibility, a lot more duties, and more than the other two positions. So again, in my email, I had recommended that maybe his position be elevated to something different than the other two. So, and the term playback technician, that actually came from the 90s, like Tom said. We actually used to put a tape in a VCR, push the button, and then like those old phone operators, we would, plug the cable into what channel it was going to. So that's where the term playback technician came from. Now everything's automated. John Bernard really handles all the playback and programming. So these other three positions really don't have anything to do with playing back our programs.
So Aiden's extra hours, those come more so from in doing a lot of the things that you did in the studio or as well?
No, honestly, even before I retired,
It
he was working that amount of
Okay.
hours. He has really taken over the YouTube channel, which, requires a lot of hours to upload that. That has really become our main area that people are watching because, as we know, cable TV is going away. Even the senior citizens who we were afraid wouldn't find us on other areas than the actual channel, they're watching us on YouTube too. As we know, our Grizzly football games have gotten thousands and thousands of views. So people are watching that on the YouTube channel too. So that's a lot of upkeep, maintenance, and consistently adding our 30 to 40 new shows that we get a week all up on the YouTube channel. So Aiden has taken over that, as well as sports productions. He's really spearheaded a lot of that, he and John Bernard. So even when I was there, Aiden was still needed for that amount of hours.
Okay.
And now basketball season coming up, we'll need him and Abe, and Jared does not do sports, he just does the meetings, yeah.
I wasn't privileged to
And-
that email. Did you
I'm sorry.
recommend a title for him or something? Did you recommend something for that? Or
I did not.
Can you tell us what it may be?
I did not in that email, but I know we've had discussions about it in the past, and I can, maybe something like multimedia specialist or program or production specialist, or there's a couple that we had talked about, Mike and I, a while back when we were kind of throwing ideas around of where this would go when I retired. But so, and as you know, before I retired, John Manning also retired.
Right.
So the studio has lost 2 full-time people in the last few years. So
And is your recommendation full-time for him?
my recommendation has been full-time for
Okay.
Aiden, yes, yes. And if you do look at his payroll for the last, few years, at least the last year, he has been consistently working 30 to sometimes 40, and sometimes a little bit over 40 if needed, so.
Yeah, and just a reminder, when we went over the WCTV operating budget, one of the things that we talked about is that we are considering a plan to have, no one can replace Joanna, but to have another full-time person there to balance out the workload. That person has not been selected yet, but that it's incorporated in the budget request. So we would be returning to having, we'd have 2 full-time people should that occur.
And we lost 2 already, and we still have 1? So we'll be down 1 full-time employee, is what you're saying?
Well, I think we lost the other one before I started.
Right, so John Madden retired in 2020, and that was a crazy year anyway, so I just kind of naturally assumed all of those duties, and so had been doing those until I retired, but technically we are down 2 full-time people. But it also depends on in what direction WCTV wants to go. So, we are still doing a lot of studio shows, and there's still, need for staffing to help with that. But if we become more of something else within the city, maybe helping with their creative services, the staffing needs may change, but no matter what, we still need Aiden to be full-time.
Now, I know
because
when-
what he's doing is very, very important, so.
When John Manning was there, of course, there were a lot of negotiations for all the cable contracts and everything.
Correct.
And I know that you did some of that along with others. With the streaming now, that's not going, that part of the job isn't going to be necessary anymore, correct? All those contract negotiations with the different companies?
That part, actually even before John Manning retired, Kevin Wallach was hired.
Right.
So that part of his position was already
Okay, moved over.
passed
Okay.
on to CityLink.
All right.
So by the end of his retirement, he was kind of half and half WCTV and half CityLink. When the CityLink duties were given to Kevin, then really he was left with half of a full-time
Okay, all
until
right.
he retired for
All
that
right.
short time.
What
So, yeah.
direction does the city want to take WCTV so we have an idea for budgeting? What is the direction?
Matt, you want me to?
So it has been an ongoing discussion, and no decisions have been made as to what direction. I think a lot of what Joanna has said, we've talked about internally, and Brian. There's certainly a current need to maintain the services in their current fashion that are going on, and that means programming coverage, show coverage, all of those different things that are happening. However, it's a challenging environment from a revenue standpoint. The primary revenue generator for many of these expenses is going away as cable goes away. Those franchise fees are something that we are struggling to figure out what the best direction to replace that revenue is. So when we talk about an important employee like Aiden, we have to make strategic decisions as to how we're going to fund that position, or if we're going to be able to move him to full-time. Does the department change in the immediate future to more of a creative marketing arm of the city, or where we go? So there is many variables going on right now that I don't think any of us currently have answers for you. What we also need is a partnership with the school district. A lot of what we do is sports oriented, we're scholastic oriented in nature, and we really don't have the fiscal support that we would like to have from that partner. We'd like to work on achieving a more equitable relationship there, where many of the costs are there. Perhaps it helps us fill the gap in revenues so that we continue on in our current format, as well as morph into something more that we provide. So, Mr. Parrish, it's an excellent question. I appreciate that question. I wish I had more definitive answers for you at this point, but I do not. It is something that's been challenging. It's something that we began talking about many moons ago, quite honestly, when Joanna was still with us, and trying to figure out what the right direction is. There are competing interests at play, but in the end of the day, we need to bring to you all as council a plan which shows a revenue stream which is reliable in order to support the expenses of the department. And we're not quite there yet.
When do you expect to be at that point?
Excellent question. I would ask the same of me if I was in your chair. So we know with some of the decisions going on in the CityLink world that those franchise fees are drying up. And that's certainly a timeline that we need to be cognizant of. Currently, we're asking in the proposal of the budget this year that the general fund support the operations of WCTV. And sooner or later, those franchise fees, they haven't dried up yet, but they will be going away. And then we have a decision point to make. What is the direction of this department? Does the department change at all? Do the services we provide change at all? I don't think we're at that precipice yet, but I'd like to make a decision before we get there. So I'm anticipating ongoing discussions with perhaps the Cable Commission, with folks internally and externally to see what direction we need to go, and hopefully have a plan by next budget season as to how we're going to fund it, what the mission will be if it remains the same, what our partners will be and what their contribution levels will be, and then ultimately we can plan for the appropriate expense levels.
So a year from now, we're hoping for.
I hope sooner than that,
Okay,
but yes.
okay. No later, okay.
When you say creative marketing, it sounds like that's a good, I love politics, it's a political question, because what we're really talking about doing is moving it under the general fund. Most
Yes.
likely.
Yes, I think you're right with
Yeah.
that, Mr. Renacci. What I'm really referencing is there are many communities our size that have specialists who deal with everything from city web pages and informational items to helping with productions and survey items and the myriad of multimedia services that I think technology allows us to leverage, and things that we could do a better job at currently. And so that's what we're thinking of in terms of the creative arm of the city.
A better idea would be to get the school district to supply some of those. As you said, the majority of this is sports related. They should have a class, or they should have something there
They do
that,
have classes.
Yeah.
And Mr. Heffinger runs that program for us.
Sure, but they should be the ones filming and becoming more and more.
They have, and at least some of our discussions, both in the past and more recently, have been encouraging our partners to make that perhaps a requirement of students in that program, and to do certain hours and really engage with folks to be a part of this. It would both benefit the student and their learning mechanism, but certainly provide coverage and provide entities and from a dollars and cents analysis, save on employee costs related there. So that's something that I'm looking forward to continuing the discussions with Dr. Hill and see what direction we can go. We aren't quite there yet for this budget proposal, and I want to be frank with the committee at that level.
I'm glad to hear that you're willing to try other avenues to inform our citizens of what we're doing and keep them informed, because that is constantly changing. So anything we can do to become more transparent to form, I think is a good thing, though it has to fit within our budget constraints. I agree.
Absolutely.
And I will also say, just so that everybody knows, because they might not be familiar with it, WCTV has started the foundation, the 501c3, where they do raise their own funds to try and buy things that aren't in the budget. They try and do that on their own, and they've been doing that for 2-3 years now?
2021 it started.
Okay. And
Yeah.
so they do that to try and help themselves as well with some of the equipment that they need that isn't funded. So they are, doing some of that on their own, but again, that's not enough totally, but wanted everybody to know that there is a little bit of funding that they are trying to do on their own too. So
Absolutely important, and I was remiss by not mentioning the importance that the foundation plays, both fiscally but also in helping us in some directional decision making too at times. So it's a vital partner to its success.
okay, all right. Well,
And just to give you an idea, if I just might add that, we do over 200 sporting events for the schools each year. We either produce them or we recruit parents and we train them on our equipment, and they record them and give us the files and we program them. So over 200 events. And I know Mike has, what would we call it, a time analysis or something, that I went through all the school-related events, and I have a spreadsheet on what it costs us to do all those. So.
any other questions then? Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate you guys coming tonight. Thank you. We'll just move on. Of course, the attachments, the electric department, CityLink, we typically we can look over those ourselves. So if it's okay with everybody, we will jump back to the capital item review. There's no other questions from anybody. And we're going to start, I guess, in the budget book on 192. Who's going to?
I think I'll start with this, and we're going to start with the public service related items, I believe, start on page 199.
Okay.
So I was going to start our conversation with stormwater capital, page 199. So my intent here is really hit the highlights, and then if you have any questions, let me know. So for capital projects on that page, you'll see here the downtown improvement project is one of those which has a component of stormwater related to that project. That is based on, I believe it's the option B, it's the 17 million option, so that's all related to those other conversations with the downtown project. You see a little stipend for the intersection project for some of the design work for the 94 Reimer intersection. A little bit of stormwater for that. It's fairly minor in comparison to the rest of the cost. And then the main project for storm is a replacement of the culvert in Durling Park that's been under design in 2025. There's some areas that are in significant need of repair along that culvert. So that project is planned to be constructed here next year. So that's just a real high-level summary on what we have programmed for storm next year. Any questions on that?
You said, just so I know, so some of this is the downtown in this area has 788,000. But what's the total that's budgeted in this entire capital budget for downtown?
I can give you that, Mr. Renacci. The total current proposed budget for the downtown improvement project is $17,185. That's in 26 budget, sorry. $17,185,000.
So you're budgeting, because the basic, the A plan was 11, so you're budgeting more than the A plan.
Yes, if you recall, at the time that we began the budget process, we didn't have the A plan
Right.
identified at that point in time. So what we placed into the budget proposal was based upon engineering estimates, what we thought a full amount would go. And that had a lot to do with consultant input and those kind of things.
Is there a way to simplify, because the total capital improvements, I know we're in service right now, but the total cap improvements is 489,650. Is there a way of taking them and bundling them where they belong so that by I guess Monday's the next meeting, that you could say, all right, out of the 49, 17 is downtown, and so that it just would be easier to understand? Because the problem is, for me, I'm sure my colleagues are doing the same thing. You got to look around and see what fits where.
Sure, we can certainly try that. One area I would point you to that you already have information is that general fund estimated capital funding chart. It's certainly not all 49 million, but that chart will provide you with some high-level items in terms of some of the capital projects that are funded there. The way the budget book is set up, and certainly, Mr. Testa, if you want to add anything, please do, but the way we have this capital projects area divided out is by the funding source, if you will, or the
Well, that's even better, if you can.
the home of the project, if you will. And so that's why you see it the way you do to follow along. But we can try to separate it out. I'll try my best to do it by Monday, but what would you like it to see, Mr. Anesi, in terms of, here you have it by fund, where the expense is housed, but it's not necessarily by public service or public safety necessarily.
I'd say by project.
By project?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of what we talked about before. If you had, here's the project, and then the funding sources, it would be a lot easier for.
This is what you're looking for, like, this is the project that has all of the different
Yeah.
budget line items. Okay, so, and that was one of the things we went over during the capital budget review at the end of September, so I have those to send you.
Yeah, and to be honest, so I've got some things I'm going to be sending you all. I've been working on the general budget. But if you take the general fund budget, you're currently projecting a deficit in the 2026 budget, general fund, I don't know, $3.5 million. Well, my question is there some capital improvements hidden in there that, because it's hard to read, I mean, I look at the general fund budget as an operating budget, and maybe there's some things in there that should be also added so that you get a pure number. But yeah, if you look at, I'm sure you know that already, your general fund, you got a deficit in the general fund of about 2.7. You're projecting a deficit of 2.7. And my only assumption is there's got to be some capital items in there.
So certainly the general fund has departments that have capital expenditures. Well, we usually pull that out of the general fund and into what we refer to as the 425 general capital expenses. So it shouldn't. One of the areas I would point you to, I don't know if it's helpful for you, Mr. Renacci, and I'm not exactly sure where you're coming up with the deficit number. I'm not arguing. I'm just saying. Let me point you to page 15 and 16, which would give you the revenue summary on page 15, and the first line, which would be the general fund operating number of $21,138,116.
Yeah, well, just look at page 17.
Okay.
Say page 17, 21,138 revenue, 23,868 expense. So right there, just the general fund summary is a deficit of 2.7 million.
Yeah, and I think you're right to look at it that way, and that is a summary of the general fund, all-in items like interest, advances out, some of those things that I think are factors that are similar to what you might be thinking about in terms of capital items, but they're not operating related items. There's some of those hidden in that page 17 summary. If you just happen to look back to page 15 or 16, you can see simply the operating expenditures in the general fund, revenue side of 21.1, and the general fund operating expenses of 20 million. So absent some of the items in that are captured on page 17, which include non-operating type expenses, you
Sure.
would, go ahead, sorry.
But what I've learned from the auditor is that some of the transfers out, like the 3.4 represents interest and earnings off the big cash balances in
The entire treasury.
the entire treasury,
Yep.
which really are not part of the general fund, so that's why she transfers them out. They become part of the other funds, which makes sense.
That's right.
But she's also got an allocation of expenses for the administration that she plugs into the general fund. So you do have a bunch of things. If you pull those out, if you pull some of those things out, you still have again, just from this page, an operating deficit. So my question again is there just more capital than anything else? Is there capital things in this over here? You're telling me there's none, I think what you're saying.
There should not be.
There should not be. So this is a pure operation with some ins and outs, and all the capital should be the 49,489, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah, so if we could just summarize it and actually show the sources of funds. It almost gets back to what we talked about like a month ago. Categorize it, sources of funds. I think the council, once they see that, it's just so much easier to understand.
So if we did it necessarily by project, would that be?
That's what I mean.
That would be better.
Yeah,
And I think we've worked on something like that already. So we'll try to, again, and we showed you some of that in that first capital project meeting
Sure.
we had, and we'll give you a little bit more detail.
and if there's a bunch of small ones, I'm not saying to have a different page for those, just lump them all together.
I got you.
Yeah.
Yep. I think
All right.
we'll do our best to get you that.
Appreciate that.
I think you might handle that.
Yep. So when you're done with the...
Yeah, I think I've done storm, so I think we were telecommunications next.
Next up, on the bottom half of page 199, the telecommunications department capital items. Anything that you see with an FTTH, which is short for fiber to the home project, are expenses that are deemed part of the project. Those are all expenses that were included in the stuff that we looked at today in a separate meeting. The pickup truck, so actually we had bumped that originally, and then we weren't going to get a vehicle in 26, but in particular this 2010 Dodge Charger, while the supervisor was out talking to a customer and the vehicle was parked, it started to roll, and it was determined that, yeah, this thing needs to go. It's actually, I believe, the former police car. So that's what you see for the 62.5 for the pickup truck, because it will be replaced with a pickup truck. Again, some of this stuff, for example, the construction labor, that is the remaining encumbrance for the project, although we don't necessarily think all of that is going to be spent. The carryover from the bucket truck, this is really part of the soft close, where finance is basically bringing over the encumbrance because the payment was issued this year. And then the last two items would be the contribution towards the downtown improvement project. This would be part of the $17,185,000. And sewer capital would be next.
Okay, so on page 200 now, we're moving on to sewer capital, and I'll just hit the highlights. I'm not going to necessarily cover every line item, so if you go through, you'll see For the big items, the first one you'll see is a $2.5 million for a digester lid replacement. That is currently under design because we have essentially, we'll say, for no better term, a damaged or at least in need of repair lid, and so that's just a very expensive process to replace. So that's planned for construction next year, and that's so the next large item you'll see. I'm not going to discuss equipment today. You see downtown improvement project there at two funds that total right about $1 million. Again, same thing, just that's the fund total towards sewer for that. And then the rest of the majority of the funding from that is on the next page, on page 201. You'll see that the last item on the list is a $6.3 million for sanitary sewer overflow. That's actually two phases. We had a 2025 phase that is nearly complete. We have, I think we have what are called 60% drawings that were just submitted to us now, but we weren't able to make it in this construction season, so we pushed that money to the next construction season. We're going to do two next year, and probably in two phases. So this is actually two phases of the sanitary sewer overflow project. This is the overall $53 million over 15 years program that EPA has mandated, and that's what this is doing. So there's some additional engineering and inspection is the $800,000 line item, and the $6.3 million for the construction.
And so we can expect over that 15-year period about $6 to $7 million a year needed for that. Is that high, or is that approximately what we're going to be expecting?
Closer to
Because it wasn't an
4.
88 million total or so what we talked about?
53 was
Okay.
the original estimate. I don't think that's inflated. So let's say 4 million roughly
Okay,
per year.
about 4 million per year?
Roughly. Yeah, that's why this is 2 years
Okay.
worth here.
So it was 53. My 88 was incorrect.
Yes.
Because I remember that number being floated around, or $80 million at one time.
In September of '24, we finalized and received approval, preliminary approval through the EPA for the SSO capital improvement plan, which totaled at that point in time $53,224,000. That's from 25 through December of 2040 for
Okay.
those projects.
Okay. And was that taking into account a 3% increase in yearly in costs of labor and inflation and so forth, or not?
I don't recall. I'll have to look. I don't remember. So
I mean, isn't that normal? 2.5%, 3% is what you usually figure per year?
I believe it is. I just don't have a specific recollection whether these numbers did that. Normally, if we prepare the numbers,
Yes.
we do put some inflation there. We did prepare this and send it to the EPA for approval,
Okay.
so I would assume it was in there. It just was not a part of that at that point.
I understand. Okay.
so next, are you
Is there, and again, I'm talking top line again. Is there a way of doing a sources and uses of cash on one page for everybody on council? So here's the net, here's our capital projects. So it's got to balance to zero. Here's what we're going to borrow. Because it is really hard for me to determine, like, next year we're budgeting, we got this little deficit over here in the general fund, or whatever you call it, this, and then you got all this coming out. So I see, like, so in my mind, maybe I'm missing it, in my mind I see like between 50 and 60 million going out that has to be accounted for, and then there'd be a sources. So we're going to spend it, which is all this, and here's how we're paying for it. Some of it's going to be debt, new debt. Some of it's going to be out of the general fund. I'm just talking about a simple 5 lines. Is that possible?
If I'm following your high-level approach to it, let's say if it's 49 million in expenses, what are the sources that will fund those expenses? That's what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Whether it be cash reserves in an enterprise fund, whether it be debt issuance, whether it be
That's it.
loan programs. whatever the source of the funding would be, I think I'd look at Mr. Testa. I think we could,
Well, we certainly, I think for all the capital stuff.
yeah, I think
something like that already.
capital-wise, we could definitely probably achieve that.
Would it be a problem to put how long that term of debt is and how much that cost is added to it? I think that's an important factor to always consider too.
I understand the rationale for that question. One of the things before I spoke up I was thinking about is how do we account for the term of those debt?
Yeah.
Because we won't even know that
Okay.
until we go for the issuance later. And so I think that might be harder to predict for you at this point in time, Mr. Parrish.
And I know, I just like to see how much you're going to add to debt.
Yep.
And then the total debt already on the city, and then at the end of this, what's the total debt? I think those would be good numbers. Your question, I would agree, is then how's the debt paid off, which
Yeah.
is but yeah,
But if that's a start.
that's a start.
Yours
right.
is definitely a start.
I'm just looking at the next section in your book, which begins on page 206, the notes and bonds ordinance, but areas. And that might help you more from a historical standpoint in current year. It does give you some snapshots into at least the proposed debt issuances next year. So for instance, Mr. Renacci, to your point on the, it's very tough to see, but it's page 209, the second to the last page. The bottom section, it'll give you some
Yeah, I see.
data about we're about 46 million in debt issuance at this point in time, 46.7. Adding in the proposed dollars, not approved, we would be moving towards about 81.1 million if you were to track that. If you look immediately below, you can see the issuance.
Our pages aren't numbered, so
Yeah.
you'll have to help us.
I'm
I do-
sorry, the
I-
last page is 210. 209 is
Okay.
very difficult to read. It's kind of imprinted over.
Okay.
It shows 39, 948,
Correct.
854.
Yes.
Correct, that's the page I'm looking at. So that gives you a little bit of a snapshot as to the external bond amount of 23.9, internal notes of about 650. It gives you a little bit of a summary that you might be looking for,
Yeah.
that you can tap into right now, but we'll see what we can get for you.
So, yeah, so is it, because here's a good question. So we got 49 in improvements, 39 in debt. Where's the other 10 coming from?
It must be cash or other sources of funding, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, I think it's important to note for the committee that, the administration isn't the only player in those issuances, as you know, because we rely heavily on Ms. Fix and her folks who are very good, who actually engage with the municipal advisors and the bond council to do some of the debt issuance. We're certainly at the table with them, but they have a lot to say, and what they say matters to us in terms of where we go and how we do certain items. And we work closely to make sure they know what we know in terms of the amounts of projects and estimates, and they're factoring that in decisions, and we're evaluating how that's going to affect the city's overall debt capacity or a particular fund's ability to move forward, or was that factored into the rate study that we're actually going to ask council to take a look at and be supportive of. And so we work pretty closely with those folks, making sure that everyone's on a similar page when we're deciding what type of debt we're going to use, if any, and how it's going to be repaid. So I just want to, sometimes I think that falls by the wayside, and it's an important point that it's not Mr. Testa, myself, or Mr. Pellock sitting there determining this will be external, this will be internal, that we rely heavily on the finance division, as we should, in terms of helping make the best decisions for us fiscally as a city.
I agree with Mr. Renacci about simplifying it for us that are not full-time employees, and making it as simple as possible, because we don't work with it regularly.
Sure.
So and then we have a better understanding, and then that creates more trust and more working relationship, a better working relationship.
That's vitally important.
Yes.
And by the way, again, I hate to say this, but some of the same cities that have filed for financial hardships also had outside advisors too. So you always got to, sometimes the outside advisors give you the advice that it's not always, because nobody knows the downturns in the upper market. I'm not saying that they did it intentionally, but I think for city council's purpose, the more they know and the more they approve, the more they get comfortable with, it'll just be easier.
Okay, so moving forward here, the next item on page 201 is 670. I don't really have, personally don't have a lot to describe about that. In general, I don't know if you, Mr. Hiscock, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I can just tell you that, well, many of the capital areas in the 670 fund have to deal with pumps and filters that are used within the water division, if you will. They sometimes come from water vehicle reserves, but it's not allotted only to vehicle-related expenses in 670. Not too much to speak to. We're certainly having a more normal year when compared to estimated costs and capital. If you look at 25's estimate of 2.5 million, we're merely proposing about 186,000 in capital expenses in this area. So a little bit of a return to normalcy in terms of expense.
Okay, then moving to the next section, do you have any questions for 670? So 672 being water supply. On the bottom of page 201, there's some really operational upgrades. You see this PRV is a pressure reducing valve, telemetry, so that's just the communication essentially that allows us to talk to that device. And then a few rehabilitations of some water wells that are just more operational. And then you'll see the big ticket item on that section is this expansion of the water treatment plant. The water treatment plant, I believe, has a 4-phase upgrade plan as part of an approved plan with EPA to make some upgrades to the plant. This is just phase 2 of those 4. So this is the design to start looking at some expansion, increased capacity, and other upgrades related to treatment and such. So that's really all I have to add for that. If you have questions.
On the wells, I just have a quick question. I'm thinking back to the days when the city was water was fully coming to the city for the wells, and then we went down and brought the water up from Dawson. Are we a limit? Because it seemed like there were a lot. We still have the same amount of wells? I guess that's a question. Or have we shut some of them down?
I believe we have shut some of them down for two. Yeah, 2. I was thinking of 2 only because they've reached their maximum capacity. That's no longer beneficial for us to run those particular wells. We still purchase water from others. We still bring that in. So well repair and maintenance is a big part of the water distribution or water's capital project areas. I think a big area that we'll get to is also the water tower project that's important next year in low-side areas. I would ask Mr. Davis, for the committee's sake, to maybe go a little bit deeper into the PRV telemetry discussion, only because I think this committee would recall that earlier in the year we had a discussion about PRV valves, and we told this committee we will be removing the PRV valve. That's separate and apart, but I think an explanation is needed as to what's happening with the PRV valves.
And my understanding of this is that there's existing PRV now. There was a proposed new valve that was removed, that was eliminated, and we're going to be building the water tower instead of that PRV. So this is not the new project. This is for what is existing. So it's just an upgrade of an existing system that will remain in place.
That's essentially what I wanted you to hear, because if you heard PRV valve and you recalled our discussions earlier in the year, you should have said, what are you talking about, Matt, Glenn? But that was removed from that because we're going to build a water tower. We are going to do that, but there is an existing PRV valve in the city that is vitally important to us to understand when it flows and when it closes, that does not have telemetry on it currently, that needs to have telemetry on it. I find that to be a very serious concern in terms of where that PRV valve is located and its importance to the overall system, in particular the low side in the event of a low water situation.
Okay, thank you for the explanation.
Okay, so Like any questions on 672? Moving forward to 673. You see, again, a matching cost for this telemetry upgrade from the 673 fund. Downtown improvement project, same thing. This is the water component in the budget, as discussed earlier. And then for the larger ticket items, just moving down the list, the last item on the page 202 is a Donna water main replacement. This is the one we've discussed in the past. There was some sort of corrosion or whatever else that was causing failure in the existing main, so this became an emergency. We are right now in design and on track to build this next year for 2026. So that was that kind of emergency project. And then 3 planned projects. One of them is the Good Water Line, which is the 1.4 million you see. That one is being coupled for funding with a grant from OPWC, grant and loan from OPWC, Ohio Public Works Commission, and loan funding from EPA. So there's a joint project with that good project. Lead service is the mandatory requirement from EPA to locate and identify the material on every service line, both public side of public responsibility and private responsibility. That is to be completed next year. And then the last thing is this looping project. This is the one that goes through the airport that has been under design for a couple years now and was delayed until we could get the funding through the EPA, and that's going to be available in 2026.
The Good Water Line, is that the city's portion, or does that include the total portion for that 1.4 million?
That is just as the cost of the Good Water Line itself. This will be, I believe this will be 100% EPA loan funded. There's another project, another item that you'll see later that is in the street section.
So the 1.4 is being covered by other funds,
I believe,
not the
yeah.
cities, not the cities.
I'd have to get the numbers to complete them, but it is. I don't have that in front of me.
Okay,
Yeah.
that would be helpful also if I know, how much money is going out and then how much is being taken care of by other entities. That's always important. I think, it helped me understand it.
That are reimbursed.
No, it's good. My brain just turned on.
That's all right.
This is EPA funded.
Okay.
I apologize. It's the paving that is
Paving, it's not, okay.
OPWC funded. I'm sorry.
Okay. And so under the street fund, that would be our portion, or is that, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think this gets back to what I said earlier. If you're going to do that summary, I don't know what number you would stop at, but let's just say everything over $1 million. You bunch together if it's for the downtown, you bunch together if it's for telecom, but then if it's different water lines, and then what the source of funding is, and then what's remaining. If there was a way of seeing that, I think that would make it. It just becomes confusing. I mean,
I'm looking at 7 million, and then but it's not a true 7 million out of our budget. There's monies coming from other places.
Yeah.
And I understand your point.
Yeah. Most of this funding, well, a significant portion of this funding is EPA
Okay.
loan funding. Okay. So any other questions on 673?
Good.
674, the big item on there is this water tower. Like I said, we're scoring the proposals right now, and we'll hopefully have someone under contract by the end of the year for that water tower design, and then should be on schedule to build that here toward at least begin construction in 2026, probably complete construction in 2027.
is that loop part of that TIF? See, that's where I get confused. You said water system looping construction. That's not the loop that we're bringing under.
No, that is not related to the Vance project
Okay.
loop. This is a separate project, Mr. Renacci, that's been in design for a couple of years and is now moving towards construction at this
Okay.
point. It is actually located geographically on the south
South side.
side of town, near the airport, if you will.
And just very briefly, there's a dead end there that in the water system that has an issue of
Pressure.
It'd be ideal to be looped for water quality and things like that. So yeah, so it's
Yeah.
essentially creating a second way to get water to the airport.
I mean, ultimately, there should be a loop all around the city, right? And Advance property will connect that loop. This will connect the loop at the bottom.
Yeah, it's a loop that's been lacking right there by the airport. That's, yeah, exactly.
Just for some additional clarity, the Vance property, or the Vance water line achieves the goal of crossing the interstate, which has been a challenge for many years, whereas if we had a failure at any other point of crossing the interstate, we'd have no source of water to get up there. So while it doesn't complete a complete loop, if you might be thinking of that in your mind, it does allow us to loop the southern portion of the water system across the interstate to the northern portion, and serve much more than just that development, if you will. So.
And just for trivia, this looping actually crosses the State Route 57. That is the primary purpose of this, is to get that crossing in.
Where currently we only have 2 locations that we cross 57. One far northern that serves the Quadrille industrial area, and the other one that runs along Seville Road to serve that industrial area. So as our approach should be, is to make sure that we have viable utilities to industry-rich or potential areas. Bringing water there now helps us achieve those goals down the road.
I appreciate this infrastructure, and I was really appreciative when you gave that about the electric, you know, that we only had one thing. I did not know that we had one source, and this is another source of water, so you're doing the same thing. I think it'd be real helpful in the capital plan to list those out, so, because I had no idea that we only had one transmission in, and this might be a need in the future, be it 3 years, be it 5 years, be it 10 years, and those type of things surprise council, because they don't work with it, and then they're like taken back. Well, we didn't know that we needed those, and they could be in the possible future. Anything that could be in the possible future would be important to, even if you didn't have put a cost next to it, just saying, these are things that we're thinking about, we're mulling between ourselves in the department, because like you said, you'd already been talking about the distribution issues. So we're not taken aback by, or surprised by those issues. I think that would really, again, help, so there wouldn't be surprises on our part.
Hear you loud and clear.
Yes.
I think it is my role to ensure that you're not surprised when we have events, whether they be emergency events or any others, and making sure that our systems are redundant and reliable is a key component to the service director's office, and we need to be planning those utility construction projects in advance of emergency events.
Now, the capital plan itself, you've brought that in 2 years, you've expanded that tremendously, but we still don't have costs or estimated costs involved with it, or funding sources next to it also, the capital plan, or possible. I think those would be important for us to know, you know, in that 5-year period, that would be something we have knowledge of. You know, I'm only looking for 5 to start with.
Sure. That capital listing is different than the capital budget document, but certainly we've come a long way from not really having one to having some of those. And we are intending, and I think our goal is that we have expenses there, so you should see some of the expenses, but they are estimates at best, you know, as you move further out in the project. There is not currently a source, a column, if you will, located in there. That might be a little bit more challenging, but we can work on something in that area.
I think that would be an ultimate goal, and I don't know what council thinks, but the more we know about that, the better off we can make decisions today for spending money that we may see needs in the future that we need to plan for.
Sure. I will just point out very briefly that sometimes we may have a project, you know, in 5 years that funding can sometimes change the order.
Oh, absolutely.
Because if we find, we got money here, we didn't get money there, sometimes it's iterative to know timing because you don't know where the money's coming from yet. So that can make it more complicated.
Okay.
In fairness, on the administration side, I can tell you, for instance, the loop on the north end, we were talking about that in 2005, so that's 20 years ago. So you would put that, you'd put that on the list. We knew it was a necessity. We had to find the right time. We tried to bring the Vance property in. It didn't work. And 20 years later, that's why I was supportive of the TIF, because I do know that loop is a necessity. So
Yes.
even those, I'm not sure. I mean, they could be writing stuff out and saying, these are wants, but not current needs. So, because I don't think they're ever going to be able to tell council everything.
No, I don't think
Yeah.
so either, right?
Okay, so 680 electric.
Sure. Mr. Test, I don't know if you want to handle 680. I'm happy to handle that if you'd like.
Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
Okay, so turning to the middle of page 203, the 680 fund, that's electric and transmission substations. By the nature of the work they do, expensive capital projects in this particular area. However, there really is just a couple of areas that I would pinpoint. The first being the first line item, the SSOE Consulting 69 kV relay panel project. So our current 69 kV relay system is antiquated at best. It basically, without getting too deep into it, it helps us run the controls at the substations and anything to do with the 69 kV distribution system, if you will. For lack of a better term, if you think about old electromagnetic controllers and those kind of things, believe it or not, we still operate with some of this. The SSOE is the name of a consulting firm that we've used on many different projects in the electric area. They are working on us, and the proposal is to complete that work on a panel project upgrade. So we move away from electromagnetic controls to a more digital environment, which is the modern approach to running a distribution substation system. Moving down a little bit forward, you see something for an SF6 gas recovery cart. We have one of those. We're looking to trade that in. It's pretty old. That's something that we use and has been proposed before. That item's been cut from the budget in other years, so we really need to include it in the budget and move forward there. Moving further down that column to the Akron Road Creek Wall replacement, that was actually a project that was in this year's budget that we weren't able to get to. Essentially, we would be rebuilding the creek wall, which is directly adjacent to the Akron Road substation. So pretty important project that we need to make sure that we don't lose assets as a result of failure of a creek wall or anything of that nature. And we're not quite there, but we need to make that repair. And then further, as you move to page 204, at the top, you'll see an expense proposed for $475,000 for transformers. This is essentially a working inventory item that we deplete on an annual basis. These are the transformers that you might use in new developments and those types of things. So this allows us to replace the electric division's inventory in that particular area. And then moving down to that to the bottom of the 680 area, you'll see 90,000 and then another $1,093,000. Those are electric division costs related to the downtown improvement program.
The security cameras there at the top, those are replacements, or what are those for? Right at the top of 204.
I see that it's a good question.
I'm just curious.
Mr. Stuckmeyer, I'm not sure if those are new cameras
Or
or if they're
replacement.
replacement of olds. I will tell you that we seem to have more and more camera installations every year throughout the city in different departments. I would guess these are new cameras, but that would strictly be a guess. I apologize. I don't
No,
have
that's
that
okay.
information.
And would
I
those
will
be-
follow up to make sure you know the answer.
I didn't know if those were used at the facilities or out in some of the parks or something like that, where we're more of a curiosity of where they are. I mean, if they're just on our property protecting our facilities, or if they're out in the parks or where they're at, that's all.
For this particular area, I would tell you they're usually used to protect electric facility assets.
That's why being in this budget.
And we already have many of those. I just don't know if these are new cameras or if they're replacing existing cameras. But these are not cameras you would find out in the non-electric facility areas. Moving along down 204 to the 681 electric building improvements. A couple of items I can tell you there they're pretty self-explanatory, but The water line to the actual electric division's building has been failing for some time. This would be a replacement of that service line. There's also a retaining wall that's against one of the storage areas that is failing. If you've been to our service complex, there is as you pull in the electric division and look to your right, there is a garaged building there. It is actually raised, and that the retaining wall that has that raised up has been, it's in pretty bad shape, so it needs replaced. That's what that $100,000 proposal there is for. I think moving to 682, I'll defer to Mr. Testa for some of the fiber to the home node electronics.
Yeah, thank you. So this is where the electric department's contribution to the fiber project comes out of. So it's still part of the electric department here, meaning it's not been transferred. We haven't taken funds out of here and moved it to the telecom funds, either 605 or 650. The portion that you see on the first line there for network construction, again, this potentially could be a lower number because this is the remaining encumbrance on the construction contract overall with Gudenkauf. And then the pieces down below would be electric department share for basically electronics and some of the outside construction materials. Again, all of these costs were part of the reports that we looked at today during our other meeting.
I'll jump back in for the last items of 683, the lower part of page 204. 370 is for replacement of one of the electric substation trucks. That's why you have sub in parentheses next to that. It's a simple bucket truck replacement as scheduled. And then there's a backhoe replacement for $200,000 as proposed. If you move to page 205, the top of page 205 in Fund 683, you see a proposed replacement of a 2014 Freightliner digger derrick. That is a vitally important vehicle within the electric division. It's a $500,000 replacement for that particular vehicle as currently proposed.
Will that be delivered within the year, or does it take several years?
I think if it follows the pattern of our current acquisition, it will not be delivered within the same year. Mr. Bellick, I don't know if you want to handle sanitation or Mr. Testa can, either one of us. I'm happy to cover it too if you need to.
Sanitation capital 690, middle of the page there. Some pretty typical stuff is some dumpster replacements there. They just rot out over time, so we need to get those replaced. The smaller ones we have transitioned to plastic. That way we get a lot better life out of them. The larger 6 to 8 yard ones, they don't make those out of plastic because they're not heavy enough to support the weight of those. Carts stayed flat there. There's always replacements of carts, and then with additional residences being built in the community, those goes towards them. Parking area improvements around the facility.
Are the sanitation carts what are at the house?
Yep, your trash carts. Yes.
Do we charge for those when we replace them? Because I know other cities do.
I don't believe so. Those are just kind of figured in with our normal monthly rate with that. So you can see again, polyaspartic floor coating inside the transfer station there. That floor is in pretty rough shape, so we want to kind of get that sealed up and make it a lot easier to clean and get the inside of the transfer station looking better. And then the parking area improvements. I'm sure you've all been to the transfer station before, and we started with those this year with some concrete areas to the west side of the building there. It's a new area to park our side load trucks on. We actually have some electric ran to that area too to keep the block heaters and the hydraulic systems on those trucks warm in the winter months. At the top of the hill there where you make the right going into the transfer station, we had those Connex boxes. We moved those down the hill so we have better visibility coming around the corner. And there's a dumpster a truck that's specifically made for moving dumpsters that was parked there as well, that we're getting out of that area, just trying to spruce up the area and make it better with better sight lines and visibility for people coming in and out of the transfer station. Any questions on the 690?
And then the last item is for vehicle maintenance. It's a diagnostic automotive scanner for our vehicle maintenance shop. That's the end of it.
When somebody says they need a Snap-on automatic scanner, is there a checkoff like, hey, I need that, then the supervisor approves it, and then somebody in administration, is there some system?
Yeah, so, I mean, we discuss it during the budget process, but they have to put in a purchase order for that. So typically, because it's over $11,000, or over $5,000, it would have to go through Board of Control. They'd have to put in a purchase order, and then one of us would have to approve that. And then the auditor's office would also have to approve it.
Yeah.
And that's usually like a 3 to 5 year upgrade they need to do with those, with the newer vehicles that come out, the software updates
Sure.
that go along with that. That's a vitally important tool for them to diagnose. And
I was just thinking from the audit side, we were coming up with policies, and this would be, making sure there's a policy on an approval process.
Any other questions or anything else from the administration on the budget?
Only thing, going back to Mr. Parrish, I do think, I was thinking if you, even the redundancy line for electric, Bill Lyron told me that 40 years ago, that was something that they were thinking about. And it probably should have been on a list somewhere so that everybody knows that could be a problem someday. And they just assumed it was not a serious need, and boom, it was a need. So I'm thinking what you're probably saying is, there probably should be a list out there. Like even 20 years ago, we needed that. There are probably a lot of things that the city could need in infrastructure, but we're waiting for the right time, right?
I will just share real fast. Right now, as we speak, there is a wastewater master plan being designed as right now, and also a transportation plan that's in the works. And we have a water master plan that was done about 5 years ago. So each piece of infrastructure does have a regular system of getting those. And those will have a list of, these are the top projects, this is a capital improvement plan for that each infrastructure system. So those are commonly done.
But I'll bet you in the electric, we didn't have that redundancy line.
I don't know.
So I can tell you, in my brief period of time as public service director, I've engaged with AMP Transmission about a second delivery point. That's essentially what we're in need of. And we had some preliminary discussions about that early in my tenure, but those kind of went away. But an event like we experienced is certainly a reminder of how important that is. In talking with the folks after assuming this role, they have had ongoing discussions about a second delivery point over the years, but I don't know that it appeared in any planning document necessarily. I will say, although our event demonstrates our vulnerability in that particular area, if you think about how long the city has been fed by that particular line, it has been very reliable throughout the years. But we're already setting up ways to re-examine and plan for another delivery point in the city. We have a meeting this week set up with folks from First Energy Transmission to talk about their roles and responsibilities and what they can do to improve our current line system. At least I hope the discussion goes that direction rather than finger pointing or anything else that it might go. But I think we need, as a city, to do more work and examination, exploration, along with our partners at AMP Transmission to see how we might bring a second transmission, or second delivery point to the city. We need to make that a priority, and in discussions with the mayor, I'm currently already doing that. So we'll see where we go. It will take some time. It's not an overnight or a one-year process by any means.
Director Hiscock, do we still have that Public Power Advisory Committee that used to be made up of, some former,
We
power
do.
people? How often do they meet?
We have not met in a regular time period. We need to get that body back together.
They had some pretty good minds that was on that committee that would kind of help steer the, our power delivery here in this city.
Very experienced folks on that
Yes,
committee.
yes. Yep.
And I just want to share, so when we met in September, we had broken down the master capital plan into two pieces, the next 5 years, and I think like from years 31 through 39. And we did have a $10 million placeholder for the substation related to a second delivery port in the year 2034 in that document.
But a true second delivery point is much more than just a simple substation.
Yes,
I mean, that's an
yes,
important
yes.
part of it,
Yeah.
but there's more to it. I think where we really see, where I might have shocked you all when I threw a number out there based upon a discussion I had with folks at AMP Transmission, the real cost in a second delivery point is the transmission line from the source entity to our delivery point. That's the real costs involved. So, millions of dollars per mile. Kind of.
One thing Mr. Iron told me is the real cost might be getting First Energy to even give it to you.
That is correct. That's part of the regulatory environment that might be a challenge. It is.
Because he said
It really is.
he said 40 years ago, they had, by law, they were only able to get one connection in, and that's the reason there's only one connection in. So there's,
It's fraught with regulatory red tape and delays.
All right. Well, if nothing else, then our next meeting date is December the 9th, and we will be back to our regular time unless something else comes up or whatever at 5:30. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
so moved.
We are adjourned, time 5:44.
You are watching WCTV, Wadsworth Community Television.